Set. Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 3rd meeting of Glens Falls Planning Board. We will begin this evening's meeting with the discussion and approval of the minutes from the July 6th, 2020 Planning Board meeting. We'll start over here with Ms. Andrews.
No comment.
Mr. Hall?
I have no comments.
No either.
No comments.
All right. That said, I'll make a motion that the planning board approves the minutes of the July 6th, 2021 meeting as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. First item, which was tabled at the July 6th meeting, was Michael Zelensky, owner of tax map section 302.12, block 10, lot 18, commonly known as 203 Bay Street, is seeking a curb cut to widen the apron of the driveway at this location. Pursuant to city zoning, chapter 220, section 220-48A, subpart 2, this application requires an advisory opinion by the planning board to the common council. Is there anyone here representing this application? Would you please step forward, state your name and relationship to the application?
Mike Glensky, I submitted the application.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything that you'd care to add, say, whatever, regarding this?
No, it's as described.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay. Our architectural consultant is not here. We'll start with Ms. Andrews.
There shouldn't be any problem with it. There shouldn't be any problem with it.
Okay.
Mr. Hall.
The only thing that I would note on there is that typically when we do a curb cut like that, we like to request of the applicant that the apron between the sidewalk and the street is concrete as opposed to being asphalt paved.
That's the plan.
It's just so that when the plows come by, it doesn't tear the asphalt up.
Okay.
The concrete needs to respond a little better, so that's the only thing that we typically ask of the applicant. But otherwise, yeah, I went over and looked at it. You see no issue with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Murray?
I have no comments or concerns.
Okay.
Okay, I have none. Thank you. Our code enforcement officer.
Currently, the property is zoned R2. R2 has a lot coverage of 35%. From what I can see, your lot size is 7,410 square feet, which would give you allowable coverage of about 2,223 square feet. Your house is at, and this is, I don't know how accurate this information, all these numbers are, at your house at 1,319 square feet. I don't know what your existing driveway is for the sidewalks, and then your new driveway looks to be, you're gonna go, it's 20 feet wide. It doesn't say your depth, so I'm guessing there's a chance this is gonna put you over the 2223 square foot for permeable coverage.
Okay.
So you might, depending on what your lot coverage is, you might need an area variance for lot coverage.
Okay.
Okay, very good. I have no other comments. Fashion of motion here. Finding a paper. Sure.
I'd make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board hereby submits the following advisory opinion to the Common Council. That the council should look with favor on the application for the applicant, Michael Zelensky, for a curb cut at 203 Bay Street as presented at the meeting of 3 August 2021 with the condition that the apron between the sidewalk and the road be concrete.
Right. And additionally, if you determine that this driveway causes you to exceed the allowable lot coverage, that you would have to seek a variance from the zoning board of appeals.
Yes.
Okay.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, you know how the process works. This goes to county council. We don't issue the curb cut, so to speak.
Okay.
They do, but you don't have to be there for it. They'll notify you, correct?
Okay, so wait on that.
So they'll notify you, and then, as I said, if somebody determines that you're exceeding your allowable coverage for that size lot, then you have to go to the zoning board.
I would just say that's a coordination issue between yourself and the code enforcement office. And if you work with Chris, he'll figure it out with you.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you, Mr. Zelinski.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. All right. The next item is architectural review 21-0027. Hudson Headwaters Health Network, owner of tax map, section 309.35, block 2, lot 4, commonly known as 100 Broad Street, seeking approval for exterior renovations at this location. Plans include new entrance canopies, new roof, and recladding the outside with fiber cement panels. Pursuant to City Code, Chapter 220, Section 220-17, Subpart 27D, this application requires planning board review and approval. Is there anyone here representing this application? Please step up to the microphone. State your name and relationships to you.
Hi, I'm Mary Kate Young. I'm an architect from Architecture Plus, and we are working for Hudson Headwaters.
Very good. Normally we start with our architectural consultant, who's not here. So, do you have anything you care to?
I have some drawings actually, and I guess the Hudson Headwaters wanted to make a small change to the site plan that I also have to show you as well. It's pretty minor, but I think obviously you guys need to see that as well. So if I could pop it up for you. And I actually have an easel I can put this on. It pops right up.
Please.
It'll just take me a minute.
Sure, take your time. Take your time.
They're a little loud, but they snap together easily.
Need any help?
It's all good. Here, so this one, sorry.
You need an architect's degree to figure it out.
Isn't that
You say that, I'm joking.
We're not engineers, you know, we're architects.
Okay, I'm an engineer.
All right,
What's that?
that's correct, yep. It's a little crooked, I'm afraid I put that way.
We'll just leave one way or
Okay. Materials too. I think this already kind of went through planning board, so you guys are familiar with the site, is that correct? Okay. Am I loud enough? Am I loud enough? So this is the existing site. You know, mostly we're trying to improve the exterior of the building. We'll talk about that. The quick site thing that they wanted to change was that I think when MJ Engineering came and presented last time, there's an exit along the south side of the building, and there's a walkway that kind of diagonals to the east, and they want to diagonal it to the west because there's a there's a curb cut here for crossing to the other side, and all of their employees are now parking next to Talk of the Town on the, to the south of this way. So they just wanted to adjust that. And then the other two items that they wanted to change were that, I guess previously we had been showing some trees between this site and the Stewart site, thinking that it would be nice to sort of aesthetically buffer the two, but not practical for snow. So they would like to have that just be green space so they can basically plow snow to that location. And then the last piece was they also, in communication with the Stewart's folks to the west, they had requested that this sort of northwest corner gets striped to support Stewart's delivery. So kind of being a good neighbor to Stewart's, they wanted to do that, which is a loss of 2 parking spots on the west side of the site. So not on the agenda, but necessary for you guys to review.
No, I think we knew you were coming back. with
Okay.
something for this.
Okay,
And just to explain to us the
yeah,
couple modifications they wanted to the site plan.
yeah.
So, before I ask any questions, I'll ask, are there any members of the public care to comment on this? There are. Thank you. As I said, our architect is not here, so we have him, city engineer, I don't recall any comments.
Nothing that he had said earlier that would have any effect on.
So, we'll begin with comments from the members of the planning board. I'll start with Ms. Murray.
Just regarding the site plan?
Yeah, just regarding this.
I have no concerns about those minor changes.
My only question is that area that your good neighbors for Stewart's eliminated two
Yeah.
parking spaces there. I'm not sure what's the required number of spaces for this.
Architect Netzel.
I just want to make sure.
I don't recall. I don't have it.
I was looking at that in the original.
Yeah,
and I
because
thought-
they expanded over here and took that empty, they knocked a couple buildings down across the street a couple years ago, and basically are primarily using it for their employees.
Right.
And using the other 2 lots. Yeah, so I think so they were going, so remember the Stewart's was using, sort of lending part of the property, if you will, right here, because the current layout, basically here's the property line, it's right in the middle of those parking spots. So they were losing that to Stewart's. And the reconfiguration basically was helping them sort of not lose all of those spots that they were going to lose to Stewart's when Stewart's took that property back.
Right, it says on the table provided on the site plan drawings, the parking spaces required are 70.
Yep,
The existing are 63, proposed are 55,
so this would be 53 because this is 2 less.
so we,
But I don't believe that's counting the lot to the south. This is just counting this 100 Broad Street property, if you will.
Right.
It's not counting the parking that's for the employees.
So, bear with me for a minute. Parking criteria, it's pretty simple. Required 5 spaces per professional plus 1 space per employee. Assume 10 professional and 30 employees. 70 spaces. Proposed 55 spaces. Proposed plus approximately 40 spaces at adjacent parking lot owned by husband. Okay. So
Yeah,
that makes up the balance.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a total between the 40 that are across the street and the 53 there, that's
Correct.
73, so.
it's more than that.
Or
It's-
not 93, I was looking
Yeah.
at the 70 on the front, so
Yeah.
it's 93 total.
Yeah, because remember, like, when they moved here, I think like think it was around 2001, because we have the drawings from when they renovated it. It was permitted at that time with this parking, not with that purchase to the south.
Across the street, right. Okay.
Okay. So that's that regarding the site plan. Okay.
No comment, as long as that across the street covers the
Yeah.
numbers. And I used to walk that regularly, so I'm glad to see that the access to the across the street walk.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have kind of because the grass is worn down right now, so it seems pretty logical.
Mr. Hall?
No, that was the only thing that I was looking at was the parking count as well. I think that the removal of the trees, it's kind of a wash. It's green space, whether there's trees in there or not. It's backing up against the back of the new Stewart's, so it's not really shielding a whole lot. Stewart's, from memory, Stewart's planting plan had some stuff along there anyways. That's a big deal.
Okay.
Anyway, do we need an amended motion?
Yeah, I think we do. So then, we'll let the original motion just say that we approve the requested changes, which are the location of the east entrance sidewalk.
The south
South sidewalk to go to the west as opposed to the east.
Well, yeah, it's on the east side of the building.
South.
This is south. North
Oh,
is
you're
up.
right,
North is up.
West,
Yeah.
all right. The south walkway, the elimination of the trees,
And the change of the
and
parking
the
spaces.
change of the 3 parking spaces to accommodate Stewart's neighbors.
And honestly, I think that when we talked with Stewart's about that, they had said that they were kind of setting up their delivery schedule so that it wouldn't interfere with the use there anyway.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, obviously, if somebody pulls in there and parks in those shaded spaces, I don't think it's going to bother anybody at Stewart's.
If it does, I'm sure it'll happen.
You will hear about it immediately.
Okay, so we're good with that.
Yep.
We will amend the original motion with those aspects. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now moving ahead, I guess.
Sure. So architecturally, I have some photos here. I have some photos here of the existing building. I believe the history of it is that it was a grocery store that got renovated into a medical office building about 20 years ago. Still has a little bit of that grocery store feel, and so
Really 20 years.
yeah.
It was way more than 20 years. It got changed.
Yeah.
That got changed from the grocery store to the original.
Okay.
That's more like 35 years.
Yeah.
Right, there was-
So we just had drawings from 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
that's all I know about.
That was revision number 3 to that building.
Okay. So, long story short, the canopies are not the greatest, and there's some site, although, technically the parking spaces on the site are accessible, a lot of folks are using the east canopy as sort of a drop-off, and that's not really functioning well, so we're reorganizing the site to make it more appropriate, but also to change the architectural style. And really, what Hudson Headwaters wants to do is to have this building be more recognizable as one of their facilities, and it look more architectural like some of their other properties that are in the area. What?
So there's plenty of them around.
Yeah, so here are a couple of them. This one's 9 Cary Road, this one's West Mountain, which is, just beyond exit 18. One of the things that they're using is sort of their red HHHN logo, and they use a little bit kind of more earthy tones, so that's kind of what we're proposing here, is to just sort of go along with that. So basically changing the canopy construction to be more of a gabled arrangement like what they have over at 9 Cary Road, and then utilizing some of the red. And so they really wanted to introduce red to the building. So one of the ways we thought of doing it in sort of kind of the most appropriate way is to do it with the windows. So let's see. It's gonna flip just to a straight up elevation here for you. So we're showing kind of those two gabled canopies at both the east and west sides. Currently there is a little gable along the north side of the building on the side of the pharmacy. So what we're thinking is we try to redo it so all of those roofs match. Architecturally, they feel similar. And what we're showing is recladding the building. So below the water, this sort of adding this water table with the natural kind of stone material, which is sliding off the board, to just change the look of the building, and then painting the brick, introducing red windows. So each of these windows would be red, get a little pop of color, get help with that Hudson Headwaters identity and branding, and complement their signage and their logo on the canopies and also on the sides of the building. Roof would be a metal roof. We are also redoing the whole roof, the whole flat roof, which you can't really see, but also updating the soffit along the face of the building with fiber cement boards. So basically, this soffit and these areas would all be fiber cement. Sort of the main body color is this sort of bone color, if you will, and the trim is this grayish tan color. And this is what we're thinking, this gray color is what we're thinking about for the roof. So just bringing kind of that earthy feel to this building and the architectural style of the gable roofs, and same materiality or similar materiality to what they have at 9 Cary Road. So I think 9 Cary Road is actually vinyl, but mostly architects notice that and probably not everybody. So it's, you know, just trying to bring that kind of little bit more of a residential scale and size to this building and integrate it with, you know, just their sort of theme and look that they're doing at some of their other properties.
Very good. Are there any members of the public who care to comment on this application? That said, we begin with our planning board. Ms. Murray?
So the brick is going to be that bone color?
Yeah, this is the only brick that will still be on the face of the building.
Okay.
Yep. So it'll be painted this. So these are actually, these are actually colors that this is hardy board, and so they have a color plus, so it comes painted. So we just match the brick to the hardy board color.
And then the bottom is going to be, which one of them? Both of them? Or would you?
Good question. I think they chose one, and for the life of me, they chose it in January, and I cannot remember, so I apologize, but it would be one of these two. And you can see architecturally they're pretty similar. It's just really a difference in scale of the stone look.
And then what's the material? That's the fiber cement board up top too?
The soffit. So this vertical, there's a soffit that projects about a foot and a half off the face of the building.
Okay.
So it's got kind of a fake stucco look on it right now. So what we'd be doing is going over it with the fiber cement and with the trim. So the trim is just trying to break it up, give it a sense of scale so it's not so monolithic, you know, and heavy.
Yeah, I like the red on the windows. I think that would look nice.
Yeah, they wanted me to do red on the trim, and I said, that's too much. It's gonna look like a McDonald's. So,
No, that's my only question for now.
yeah.
Mr. Hall?
Will the doors be done to match the window frames? And is it painted or are you replacing the windows?
We're replacing the windows. We're doing a Pella aluminum clad wood window. So, you know, so all of the mullions will all be that red. The doors they have recently replaced, so they're not planning on replacing those. Those, I believe, are just an anodized aluminum.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
so the idea is.
And so the hollow metal doors, I think there's one or two that are not in super great condition, so I think we're replacing them. We are painting them.
But they're being painted to match the field and not the windows themselves.
I think that's probably what we're doing. Yeah, truthfully, I don't think we've given it a huge amount of thought, but I think red would be a little too much.
Possibly for the entire door, but maybe not for the frame. If it's a
Correct.
hollow metal frame,
Yes.
the frame could potentially match the window
Correct.
mullions themselves, and I think that would be,
Yeah, I don't think that would be, yeah.
I think that.
All red would be a little intense. But
Yeah, and the material that's on there, that's the existing brick, that's all staying, it's just getting painted.
it's actually painted currently.
It is now.
Yeah, it's painted. All the brick on the building is painted, and then there's kind of a green band running around below the soffit currently.
Right. And it was originally a tan brick anyway.
I don't know the answer to
I don't
that.
think-
But yeah, it is currently just painted.
Yeah.
And then there's actually kind of a green stripe going around below currently. So,
Yeah, other than that, I mean, I just think that if the door frames match the window frames, and that
Okay.
should be easy to match, especially with the pellet color, it should be.
Oh,
easy to
yeah,
match.
yep.
So that would be the only suggestion I might make. Otherwise, I think it's a great use for the building, and obviously it's in need of a little TLC. So
Yep.
this is a good update.
Thank you. Xander?
What are they doing for the roof on
The flat roof,
no, the other?
the gate, so it's metal. It's
Oh,
a
well,
standing seam metal
So
roof.
that'll show then, that
Yeah,
will show.
yeah, you'll see it. So right now, I don't have that elevation. Oh, no, I don't have that elevation. I gave you the other two here. Oh, yeah, it's on here. I think it's under here. Just have to flip to it. So this is Broad Street. So this is where the pharmacy is, and there's a second roof here. So this roof existing has a standing seam roof on it. It actually has a copper roof on it, but it's it's been there for at least 20 years. So we're just going to replace all of them so they all are consistent and look the same. So we're headed in sort of a grayish direction for that
The
grayish.
finish will be nice too.
Yep.
Yeah, I was glad it wasn't gonna be a red door, because there's too many songs about what's behind the red door.
Yes, yes. And the gutters will probably match the color of the roof, and they'll be, kind of coming down on like this color, the sort of darker trim color, if you will. So I think it'll work together nicely.
All set? Thank you. All right. I don't think we did seeker for this, but whether we did or not, I would classify this as a type 2 action, therefore no additional action is required. So other than that, I guess, all in favor? Or actually, we need to move this, I'm sorry.
So I would make a motion that Glens Falls Planning Board acting as the Board of Architectural Review hereby grants architectural approval for the project identified as Hudson Headwaters Health Network, owner of tax map number 3809.35-2-4, commonly known as 100 Broad Street, as presented at the meeting of 3 August 2021.
If you want to put your comment in.
The only stipulation, the only amendment to the proposal submitted is we'd like to see the hollow metal door frames painted to match the window frames.
Right. Very good. Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Except the next item is site plan review, 21-0032, Skywater, Glens Falls LLC, owner tax map, section 303.14, lot 3, commonly known as 137 Dix Avenue, seeking approval to construct a lean-to the outside storage of empty LP tanks at this location, empty, not full. Pursuant to City Code, Chapter 220, Section 220-18C, Subpart 17, this application requires planning board review and approval. Is there anyone here representing this application?
That's right.
Would you step forward and state your name and relationship to the application, please?
My name is Jim Bushnell. I'm a contractor out of Urbana, New York. That was asked to look into preparing and planning this whole thing, this whole building. It's actually a through building. And this is Ed Schulteis. He's the facility manager for RE Michael.
Okay, very good. What was his name again?
Ed Schulteis.
Schulteis. Did you spell
That's
that?
right, that's right. It's on the application.
Okay.
SCHULT.
I have a site plan here that I thought our engineer had already sent to you, but
Yeah, I think we have it. This one here.
yeah,
Okay.
it's just a little bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
See if we need it or we'll get it from you. Again, are there any members of the public that care to comment on this application? And did you have anything else you wanted to add as far as?
Unless you have questions for me, they're just looking to sell brand new tanks that are coming directly from the manufacturer.
Empty.
Nothing in them, nothing ever will be. No fuel will be sold there.
That's an important stipulation right there. Seriously.
Now, also, RE Michael doesn't sell to just anybody that walks in the door. They only sell to contractors approved by the Heat Institutes and so on and so forth.
Very good. Thank
So
you.
even if something was to be returned, it would be returned to the contractor that bought it, not the store.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay?
Bear with us. So, we only have our architectural consultant, no public comments, hearing. We will begin with the
No comments about it, sounds like a good idea.
Mr. Hall.
So just looking at the lot coverage and things of that nature on the application, it looks like you meet all those criteria, setbacks and everything were good there. Is it my understanding that this is an open building?
Yes, it's going to be a canopy roof with a secure cage. The cage will be
chain linked around?
chain link with the vinyl slats through it.
So it will have something that shields so that somebody's not looking directly?
Yeah, that plus keeping the weather out to some degree.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that's a good idea. It's a 40 by 60 building.
Right.
Okay. So that, looking at that and looking at the site plan, I didn't really see anything there. The only concern that I would have is the roof pitched just one direction? Is it pitched both directions? How are you?
No, it's going to pitch in, I think all four directions. The engineer was talking about doing a hip and ridge roof.
A four-way hip?
Four-way,
So it's kind of evenly
That's,
distributed.
his idea was that would distribute the water, that will for a bigger area.
And then how is that being handled once it hits the ground? Is
Uh,
this
they
going
just-
on top of the paved area now?
Yeah,
Okay, so that entire area where this is sitting is all hard surface?
Yes.
So it's not like you're replacing green area of the building. This is already hard surfaced, and I know that there's not an issue with runoff. My business is immediately across the street.
Oh.
So I know there's not an issue with runoff over there, but it's just, making sure that somehow it's not guttered or anything like that. It's just drip line down to the ground.
I think that would be the best way to do it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was really the only thing that I was concerned with is where is the water going? It goes where it goes now, and it's
Right.
not, and I know that there's the people that live kind of behind the space, so.
Yeah, there's a house that's a good distance behind there.
And if they had an issue with rainwater, you'd be the first to know about it.
Yeah.
Other than that, those are the only things that I
Very good.
questioned.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we did have an engineer, Dick Green, that did this, all
Yes.
the work on this, because I wouldn't have known how to.
I took a look through it, and it looked like they pretty much put all those items on the site plan, so the only thing I didn't see was what's going on.
Right.
It's on top of the pavement or
Ms. Murray?
No, all my questions have been answered.
Okay?
Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, that house that sits back here,
Mm-hmm.
is the right way to that end? Is anybody living there?
I believe so, yes.
They have no problem,
No, they get along well with the company and they're treated good.
Okay.
No problem there.
I remember when it changed from Colonial, when it was Colonial Plumbing, and when Ari Michael came in, I remember that they came and spoke, and their biggest concern at that point was the coming and going of tractor trailers, and that's proven to be a non.
Yeah, there's not that many, it's what.
And there's really not.
Couple a week.
2 times a week.
Yeah, 2 times a week.
Yeah,
And
I
they're
watched
usually
them.
parked at the dock early in the morning before anybody's up.
Yeah, I watched them come in yesterday morning, had to pull in and back all the way back out and try and plant back in.
But I have a Class A myself, and the problem with sometimes with those guys with the big, long, over-the-road tractors, they're great on the road, but they're not that good trying to dock.
This guy was pretty good. This guy made it. He just won in one, out, back
Yeah.
up, back.
No, I once worked at a big GE plastics plant down in Selkirk, and that was always a problem with big over-the-road rigs trying to back into the dock.
Well, and I think it helped when Evia did their paving across the street. It's going to make it a lot easier for
Yeah.
somebody to pull up there and back right straight across. So, and they do. It's mostly first thing in the morning. I see things coming in
Right.
there. That's
Okay, again, in my opinion, this is a type 2 action. The reason I say that is it's minor to the extent that it has no potential environmental impacts or any impacts are minimal. Therefore, no further action is required.
I do have 2 quick concerns. One, it says a 10-foot fence, which is not allowed by zoning for the site plan.
What's that you say?
It calls for a 10-foot fence on the perimeter, which is not allowed.
Is that just that was my clarification. I think that's just the walls of the building itself, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, really, they're using chain linking as the screen as opposed to putting siding on it. So I would say if it were a freestanding fence, I would agree.
Okay.
But because that's being used as the actual enclosure, the walls, so to speak, of the building, I think that's
They don't go all the way up either.
right. And it's open above that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just more of a visual.
But it's a security matter.
Yeah.
This is security.
It's a 10-foot wall.
Yes.
Okay. And the other is they 100% have to be unused.
100%. Yes. There can't be anything.
Yes.
No reused.
Yeah,
No,
they have
we-
Is that the tanks?
Yeah, the tanks themselves have.
We only sell new tanks.
Discussed that earlier.
Yep.
Okay. So that said,
That's another bright spot. I've been told there's an impending propane tank shortage. I find a shortage in my business almost every day anymore, but
Yeah.
somebody did tell me recently that there's gonna be a propane tank shortage coming up.
okay.
Great.
I'll make a motion that Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as a board site plan review, hereby grants site plan approval for the project identified as Skywater Glens Falls LLC, located at 137 Dix Avenue, as presented at the meeting of 3 August 2021, with no additional comments or qualifiers. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now.
Now, we have an item that has Hudson Headwaters property on LaRose Street, where they have plans to construct a facility, which has no bearing on what we're going to discuss here. Hudson Headwaters desires to have that lot rezoned from an R1A to a GC1 in order to accommodate a future facility. Letters went out from the city clerk to adjacent property owners, me, neighbor, etc. We need to give the common council our opinion as to whether this should go forward with zoning reclassification or not. we need to do it today, otherwise, we have 35 days from the date of issuance of the letter and the information contained therein to comment. No comment is deemed a favorable opinion. So I am one of the property owners. I will recuse myself. Mr. Hall will, let's see, can we do that?
Can't, you don't have it more?
I was thinking, I was Peter.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, I'm gonna kind of off the record thing. Did you get a chance to talk?
Yeah, he'll take a call.
Oh, he will, okay. Okay, you wanna, we don't have our attorney because we didn't think this was gonna come up. Partly my fault, I'm not reading the fine print.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So. That's a lot of good. Hey, Dan Bruno, thanks for taking the call. Sorry about this. The item that you commented on that I said was not on the agenda, I don't know if you're aware of the quandary, so to speak, here. It was 35 days from the date of that letter that went out for Hudson Headwaters regarding the Rose Street. If we don't comment on that tonight, we'll exceed the 35-day limit, and no comment is deemed as favorable or whatever opinion. We have another problem. I will have to recuse myself. Ron Green and Bridget Culligan are not here, so that will only leave 3 board. Peter Accardi isn't here either. I didn't know he was not going to show up. Ron and Bridget notified me. Peter didn't. Well, anyway, so quandary there is, if I recuse myself, we have no quorum. So, I've got you on speakerphone, by the way, but it's just the board.
Do you want to recuse yourself from chair and let Ethan chair the matter? You don't have to, but you could.
Yeah.
And then still vote on it, cast your vote, knowing that it's only a recommendation.
Sure.
So it's not binding on the common council in any event. And then you could issue your thoughts on it as any board member, but perhaps from a perception point of view, if you're not chair.
Correct.
I don't see that you have a financial stake. I know where you live, obviously, but it's not as if you stand to personally profit from the development one way or the other. As if you're an investor in it.
No, I agree with that. I'm okay with it. Ethan, I guess he agreed to chair the meeting. Maybe it just removes some stigma of impropriety or however you want to term that. But I'm good with that, and I will throw my opinion with the rest of the board. And again, I would remind everyone that this is simply regarding a zoning classification, no building plans, no nothing.
Correct. Yes, I believe the letter from Curtis may have had some schematics attached to it because that is what Hudson Headwaters submitted, but the board is not reviewing that particular project, just the idea of reclassifying those 2 parcels of land into GC1.
Mr. Curtis is in the room as well. He was kind enough to stay here in case we needed him. Anyway, so all right, well, I appreciated that, and we'll proceed thusly. We'll discuss it and see what the opinion of the board is.
Okay, thanks. If you need to reach back out to me, you're welcome.
Okay, I really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you. Oh, great.
Now, I don't want to move other stuff. So, we have been tasked with, and did everybody get a copy of the letter regarding the rezoning? Yes. Okay. So, what we have been tasked with is providing an advisory opinion to the common council regarding the rezoning of this parcel over there. So in going through and in talking with Ed and Dan a little bit, I just want to go through and read off the administration and enforcement for such amendments and things of that nature. In undertaking such review, as shall be requested by the common council, the planning board shall make inquiry and provide recommendations concerning the matters specified below. Whether such change is consistent with the proposes embodied in this chapter as applied to the particular district or districts concerned, whether the areas and establishments in the city will be directly affected by such change and in what way will they be affected, whether inadequate public services and other support facilities exist or can be created to serve the needs of any additional development that may occur as a result of such change. The indirect implications of such change in its effect on other regulations, and whether such proposed amendment is consistent with the underlying objective of the city's master plan and this chapter. So, in talking with Ed and going over it, one of the things that Ed wanted me to note on here is that that last paragraph, whether such proposed amendment is consistent with the underlying objectives of the city's master plan and the city zoning code. Note, the city does not have a current master plan. So the things that we kind of have to look at in looking at this, we have to take the parcel just as the parcel itself and look at the permitted uses. If this were changed from the residential 1B, which I believe that is what it is. It's
1A. You said 1A first.
It says, pursuant to this, it says from 1B to GC1.
Okay.
It is currently 1B. Right.
And the current
Master plan. The current zoning.
Yeah, it's
map,
R1B.
yeah, shows that as an R1B. So, looking at the current zoning map for that area. The R1B goes from
It goes from the south boundary of
Yep.
that property,
Yep.
the roads that their Hudson Headwaters now owns.
Yep.
And it goes up to Grant, is it Grant Street?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, is how far does that R1B?
I'm sorry, R1B starts at the south side of the property where they own.
Correct.
Okay.
This is the property.
So it's this little nub that's right here,
Okay.
right?
This is the, this is the property.
So, this is the property.
So it's,
This is
Are those the and this goes all the way to that
well, this is the high school.
This is the school here.
Okay. This is LaRose Street here. This is the field,
Okay.
the current LaRose field now. So in looking at this and in looking at the zoning map, it is about, this parcel is bounded on the south side by cultural professional. So we would be looking at going from the GC2 zone, which is down on Broad Street, to a cultural professional zone to a
Back to-
GC1, and in looking at that, the issue or the thing that I would look at in taking that particular piece of property, we have to look at every use that could be put on that piece of property. And I'll just read through the allowed uses. I got it here. So the allowed uses, permitted uses upon site plan review and approval by the planning board are retail businesses, professional offices, and office centers. Services including real estate offices, insurance agencies, travel agencies, and investment brokerage. Emergency services including ambulance service and dispatch centers. Convenience stores with or without gas pumps. Public and private schools and institutions of higher learning. Public and semi-public uses including uses associated with provisions of public utilities. Places of worship and associated buildings. Funeral parlors, fraternal organizations, private clubs and lodges, multiple family dwellings of 3 or more dwelling units, motels and hotels, hospitals and related healthcare facilities, nursing homes, adult care facilities and licensed care centers, video rental stores, banks and financial institutions, private and public parking areas and private and public parking structures, shopping centers and commercial strip centers, restaurants, takeout restaurants and drive-through restaurants, health club, fitness club, and commercial recreation, taverns, publishing and printing businesses, wholesale businesses, beauty shops, barber shops, office supply and equipment sales and service, and any other permitted use by site plan review and approval with combination of 1 or 2 dwelling units. So that's a pretty significant list of areas that are immediately adjacent to an R1B zone. In looking at the rest of the general commercial zone, it does not appear on our map that, with the exception of the property on Broad Street that was just recently rezoned for 186 Broad Street, which was just recently done, that is the only spot in the city that I could find in looking at this, short of the area that is at the end of Sanford Street, the GC1 zone that's at that 5 corners up top there, that immediately abuts an R1B zone. Everything else is buffered by either a cultural professional, a GC2, or some kind of an RM zone, multi-family residential zone. So I think what we're being asked is, does this piece of property warrant being rezoned to such a heavy commercial use immediately adjacent to a residential zone with no buffer?
I think a perfect example too is what we discussed earlier, just that Hudson Headwaters was a grocery store before. I mean, things change.
Right.
They even things that seem like they're going to be here for a long time, they change.
And once the zoning change is made, regardless of what happens, that zoning runs with that property. And just speaking from my own personal, I mean, when we looked at 186 Broad Street, we made that recommendation for Broad Street Commons.
Thank you.
When we made that recommendation to the zoning, to the Common Council, we actually made a disfavorable recommendation there because it included the one big piece of property in the back that just had parking on it. And our reasoning when we did that was that that piece didn't need to really be rezoned to be general commercial because all it had on it was parking, and a variance could have been sought for just that. I guess in my opinion, looking at this piece of property, I'm not sure that putting those allowed uses immediately adjacent to residential zoning is appropriate.
I agree.
The cultural, I would have no problem expanding the cultural professional to accommodate that lot, because if we look at what's available in cultural professional, bear with me 1 second, I'll find
And the
that.
other side is buffered by that as well, so.
The other side, yeah, is already there, it's already,
I think just the traffic issue alone is enough. I mean, you're gonna increase the traffic, which the R1 doesn't want to generate any traffic other than neighbors. You're going towards the school as you're going north on that road. you know.
yeah, you're coming on Western Avenue is the major thoroughfare, La Rose is the lesser of the two thoroughfares, but this property does connect on both sides. So cultural, professional, permitted principal uses are offices with less than 1,500 square feet of gross floor area, single-family and two-family dwellings, public parks and playgrounds, and recreational facilities, and then accessory uses, private garages, non-commercial greenhouses, home swimming pool for non-commercial use, television, radio antennas, accessory equipment which is not enclosed, and then permitted uses upon review and approval by the planning board include offices with more than 1,500 square feet, multiple family dwellings or of 3 or more, museums, bed and breakfast, places of worship and associated buildings, public utility facilities, any combination of 2 or more permitted uses or permitted use with 1 or 2 dwelling units, home occupations, accessory equipment, television and radio station, antennas, television, satellite dishes, and uses, uses subject to architectural review are offices, multifamily dwellings, museums, places of worship, public utilities. It does carry with it a density requirement for multiple family dwellings, and the lot size and area coverages are slightly less than what the GC1 would be. But again, I think in my opinion, looking at it, it almost comes down to spot zoning. I mean, we're taking a single lot and changing its use from residential to general commercial with no buffer between the two.
And I think the neighbors should have a reasonable expectation if you purchase a property in that zone, and you're not bordering another zone, that it should not be switched to that zone. It's one thing to say, okay, I live on the edge of
I live on the edge of a
cultural professional,
That's fine.
but you don't live on the edge of the GC.
That's my primary.
I agree.
Exactly. And I'll just speak to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I purchased the property, and I'd like my neighbor to speak as well, Mrs. Weber, my wife and I purchased the property from Mrs. Weber and her husband, Tina and Dennis Weber, knowing full well that we were building adjacent to R1B. And to Ms. Murray's point, you hit the nail on the head. You have a reasonable expectation, that's kind of legal jargon for reasonable expectation to have that, living in that zone adjacent to it, et cetera. You're not going to have all the things cited in the GC1, et cetera. It's as you well stated, it's not as though if I had purchased property built next to a GC1, industrial zone, whatever. No, honestly, I mean this, I would be okay with it. I'd have to accept it. Because we've had people come, I've been on this board too long, and I've had numerous people over the years come to this board and say, wow, we're against this change or that development, not change. We're against this development, we don't want this or that, and yada yada. And while I hear you, I would say to them, unfortunately, you should have known that when you purchased the property, that you were adjacent to this particular zone. You didn't own the property. If you didn't want that to be developed in a cold, calculated way, or whatever you call it, you should have purchased that property. But when the owner comes along, after it's sat there maybe decades, and decides to do something with it, we really don't have much of a standing. But again, this is not the case here.
Correct. And again, looking at it purely from, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Looking at it from a purely zoning map perspective, said, there are very few spots in the city where general commercial directly abuts a residential zone. It's always buffered by something else. And this particular lot already runs from the GC2, which is on Broad Street. On that end of Broad Street is GC2, which is a lower zoning classification with less available items in its laundry list of items that can be put in, buffered further by a cultural professional, which is kind of how the zoning typically runs along those items. You have the intense uses along the main travel corridors, and then less intensive uses as you start to get towards the other areas. The other thing, and I don't know that we got anything, and Chris, you may know the answer to this. The town of Queensbury, because this abuts Western
We
Avenue,
have not got the county's opinion.
the county or anything from the town of Queensbury either, because they immediately adjoined that. Has there been anything? We've heard nothing back from either one. And with that going to the town clerk, more than likely it would have been directed to the director of planning and zoning at that point, which is Craig Brown. And Craig would have been taken it to his zoning board, I would assume. So, but again, it's, that was, this initial letter was sent in the 28th of June, so I'm not sure. Nothing back. I think that's where we're at with it. I guess in my mind, the way I'm looking at it, I would say that you can't throw the microphones anyway in front of us. To me, it's bordering on spot zoning, and I don't feel. I mean, I think personally, I would say that I would, at this point, my opinion of it would be that the council should look with disfavor upon that for those reasons, because there is no buffer, which is how the zoning map is typically set up. We're setting this up to buffer the residential zones from heavy commercial use, and because it is basically a single lot, we kind of come down to spot zoning. I just don't think that.
I agree with you.
Personally.
Yeah, it makes much more sense. Your pictures are better than mine of the zoning. When I looked at this, it was really hard to tell.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that that's, where the buffering thing is really.
Right.
How long, I don't know if this is a non sequitur, but how long has it been professional in that neighborhood?
Cultural professional?
Because I remember when that changed, but so it's like it's itching up over time. But again, to choose just one lot makes that.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone from, the Broad Street corridor, which has been general commercial 1 and general commercial 2. That's typically been that's the main corridor in and out of the city. It started to bleed north and south from that a little bit, and I think mainly because Western Avenue is the main north-south thoroughfare once you get to that part of the city. When you hit the city line, you're either headed downtown or you're headed left. There's not a ton of traffic at that light that really turns right and heads into the lower basin, say the R1B that's back headed down towards Haviland's Cove and into that portion of the city. The majority of it is headed to the left and headed up Western Avenue, which in the town of Queensbury is actually, they've got portions of Western Avenue on that side that are commercial up to right about where our cultural professional starts, and then theirs switches to residential on that side.
I guess that was my next question, is where does their line change? Because the guys across the street are going to have the same concerns, even though they're in Queensbury.
Right. There are, on that side of Western Avenue, there are residences along there. There is also a couple of don't think that that professional office that Rizzo had was, I think that's farther back. It's right across from the I place.
Dr. Klein
Yep.
is right behind me,
Yep.
facing on Southwestern Avenue.
Right.
And
And across the street.
north from him
Yep.
is another professional office, that's the doctor.
It's been multiple.
That's correct. And
But it's the
as
small
you
one.
say, across the street from them was, there was, what's that?
Leo's whole practice.
Yes.
Yeah,
on
he's-
Guido's.
That's
Right.
the Queensbury side.
Yeah.
That's on the Queensbury side. But right after where Dr. Guido's office was, it changes back to residential again. Because it's all residences, because that's where Sergeant Kuhn was
Which
back around the corner.
Which happens to be a Hudson Headwater building now.
Yes.
Right,
Right.
I noticed that, I noticed that.
Right. And then it's residential until you get up to Hallmark.
There's only one house
The nursing. It's just one now?
there. Yeah,
And then?
Child's.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Would
only
you
one.
like to let Mrs. Weber speak?
Certainly.
I mean, I just,
Do you want to come up here?
I don't need to.
And
I mean, we haven't advertised for the public hearing. It's hard to keep people from talking.
It is hard to keep me from talking. So, first of
You
all,
wanna know
Hannaford,
who this
I'm
is?
Tina Weber. I,
she lives at 16.
16 James Court, we bought the property 30 years ago, 32 years ago, I guess. Where Hannaford is, used to be West Side Auto. They are actually right on the whole footprint of West Side Auto, which was obviously heavy-duty commercial. I mean, they had to dig it all out because of brownfields and stuff like that to put Hannaford in. I don't know. I've been around for a long time, so I have a good memory. So then it goes to, then it went to, it was a nothing property. It was still GC1 or R1, R1B was nothing. And then Ron Newell came to us and he wanted to build, and he built where Dr. Viral is now, and their offices were on the other side. They bought the property right to the back, all the way across, and then there's still one house on Rose Street that is, I think it is now zoned, which I don't.
This is all in the cultural profession.
All in the cultural professional. It was all cultural professional. We went, we did a lot of stuff. Right behind Dan's, that was Mr. Bailey's house, and that was R1, R1B. Then Klein's came, we turned it to cultural professional. Then next to,
Still zone R1B.
So
it is still
They
zoned.
got a variance.
They got a variance,
So
correct.
did that other one north of them,
correct.
which I just want to interject here. The one north of them really should have come to this board. The variance doesn't carry with the property owner.
Right.
When you change, you have to apply for a variance again.
Is that the chiropractor you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that correct, Mr. Curtis?
The chiropractor house, is that? Yeah, well, we're having trouble with that too.
Well, anyway.
Their
So
fence
that's
went
all
down, they
still-
say it's not written that it went with the property, now we don't have a fence. Now we have people walking through, we have a nice little neighborhood. Yesterday morning, I saw some vagrants opening up garbage cans, looking and stuff like that. We used to have a nice fence, and it fell down last winter, and they said, it's not written, we don't have to, and they're not. So, when I feel like I'm being picky, I am, because I've seen what's happened. Ron Newell, I'm sorry, Ron, but he said he would put spruce trees in. He went to Price Chopper, I swear, and got this big, and that's what he put in. They're beautiful now, but if Hudson Headwater gets their way, they're coming down. But I mean, it took 15 years for them to be trees that he said when they came to us and did all these pictures and we had meetings and look at it face value, and all of a sudden they go, oh, and then you go, you're kidding me, that's really what you're putting in? Well, you go back through and you look and it's not specified. So once again, screw you. I mean, really and truly, that's how I feel. I have had 2 meetings. I've had one face-to-face with Hudson Headwater, and I've talked to them like 3 times, and I've talked to them here at the meeting, at the Common Council meeting. So, I mean, they know.
Regardless regardless of potential use.
Correct,
really
I
has no
understand that.
bearing on
All right,
our-
okay, I understand that. But here what I'm saying is, when I bought my property then, when I bought it, it was under farmland. And so then I went to it and it said it was R1B, and I said, oh, we're gonna have a field. And the school put the fence up and the kids have played there for 30 years. My kids played there. It's always been R1B. It's, you know, and that's what we bought it for. I sold it to them. It was R1B. I don't think who knows what's gonna go in there. The Salvation Army bought it. They didn't do anything with it. They let the school rent it for $1 a year, just because of that's what insurance is. I mean, I have to say, I'm hoping that you can't stop progress, but I think something has to be with a variant if it goes, because, and I want it to be so stringent that they understand that you're taking away a beautiful neighborhood. And it is. We have, I mean, like, people come to my house and they go, wow, you live in the city and you got all this property and you have all this, and then all of a sudden it's changing. So I'm sad about it is what I am. And I just feel like once you guys do your thing, I want to make sure that we look at every single thing, you know. That's all I have to say. That's what I'm sad.
Okay, thank you. So I think really, based on our discussion here, I think we obviously have to make some kind of an advisory opinion. So I think that if nobody has an objection, I will proceed with that opinion. So I would make the motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board hereby submits the following advisory opinion to the Common Council. The council should look with disfavor for the rezoning of the lot at 38, it is 38 Larose, I just want to get it correct.
It's two properties. It
Yes.
is two properties, so.
Yep. So, the letter that we have just strictly calls it 38 LaRose Street. So I will call it out by the tax map numbers. That they should look with disfavor on the rezoning of the properties for the two parcels of tax map number 309.7-10-8 and 309.7-10-33, 38 LaRose Street. The reasoning is given in our discussion here, but the majority of, I believe, the majority of the opinion is that the change to a general commercial 1 immediately adjacent to an R1B without some type of zoning buffer is undesirable. The desire would be more palatable if it were to expand the cultural professional or to have any future use on that property seek some kind of use variance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does that give you what you?
I think so. Will the common council?
The common council
Or
can,
to see specifics or
will they review the,
the minutes of the discussions?
they would get copies of it.
Got it.
Yes. No, I mean, it will be, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to their decision. And we had the same discussions when we did Broad Street Commons. And I believe that our motion to them on Broad Street was a disfavorable opinion.
And that was on the parking lot.
Rather than the
It was, no, they were rezoning 5 properties.
Serious change.
And our opinion to them was for them to look with disfavor upon the rezoning of all of it, simply because that one lot could have been dropped out, and then there wouldn't have been a problem with the other ones on Frederick Street being rezoned. And they just,
But regardless, when buffers and all that aside, you rezone this
it's
to
gone.
GC1, it opens up all of those.
All of those uses, and that's
not
really,
myself, neighbor, and other people.
Us as a board shouldn't want that.
No.
It's not, I mean, it's not, it has really no bearing. I mean, it would be like taking any specific part, any specific lot in this city and saying, you know, somebody's asked to rezone this. And at that point, regardless of who it is, would we look at it and say, you know, does that particular parcel lend itself to being rezoned for those uses? Now, if the city's growing and somebody comes in and buys up every property between them and somebody else and says, okay, now I want to take this cultural professional and rezone the cultural professional to a GC1, but I also want to take lots X, Y, and Z and make those cultural professional, and I just want to expand the general commercial zone. Okay, great, I can see that.
Because he's building in a buffer.
Because you're taking the buffer and just sliding it. I mean, growth is inevitable. But it has to be smart growth. We have to think about how are we growing this and how are we making it palatable to everybody that's there.
And there's communities very close to us that don't think about this, and you drive by and you see it, and it's a
And you can
mess.
see the, yeah, you can
And it
see
looks
the
horrible,
sprawl
yes.
and what happens. And I mean, if
It's
you,
not well thought out.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking, one of the first things I asked about was a master plan, because where I lived in another place, there was considerable discussion about this kind of, there must be a buffer. Just putting it out there out front rather than kind of, kind of coming in, it's like the fire department people coming in after the fact, hoping that we can, utilize some of the code. A zone, a buffer just makes sense.
It's been done properly, that's what we have now, so why would we go in and,
and
If it was
That's
part of a master plan that this part of town was gonna change, and
Right.
somebody bought up the whole thing, like you said, then they could alter the section. But then everybody in that whole area would be
Yeah.
part of that.
Right.
process.
absolutely.
They would have an opportunity to sell their property
Right.
and to move on.
Right.
Mr. Curtis, did you want to offer anything or add anything?
Not really. The only thing is that we haven't heard from Warren County Planning. If Warren County Planning comes back with a negative advisory, it would require the common council to sort of override that and voting in favor.
Okay, thank you.
And Queensbury has nothing to say about it because it's the other side of the road, right?
I mean, if Queensbury can offer an opinion and the council will take that under advisement as well.
Right. And that's really, ultimately, that's all it would be, is just, thank you for your input.
Another neighbor, right?
So,
when will that be made? Within 35 days, will common council make that decision within 35 days? Is that the maximum?
Our opinion goes with them. I don't
we
know
had
what
to
they-
give our opinion within 35 days. I don't,
Megan will type up the resolution from tonight. We will add that when it goes to the common council, if they do for setting a public hearing going forward. They will be aware of that.
so good job, Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll vote out a couple of different things to consider.
Moving along, just to close up, Mr. Fitzgerald and I are continuing to review some suggested modifications to chapter 220, which will be finished with them. We'll get to everybody, you can comment on them before we send it to the common council. Just like this, it's up to the common council what they want to do with it, but just to give you a little history, we started this. I hate to tell you how many years ago.
4.5. Went back and moved it myself.
4.5?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was more like 10.
Oh, right.
They're probably talking about it for a while.
No, we actually had meetings,
We
and we had
actually had meetings.
workshops, and then it just kind of languished for a long time. Where I'm going is, the reason we did that, I thought, in all sincerity, that we could save a few dollars for the city, because it needed some TLC
It
is,
needs a major.
somebody said, I don't know that it needs major,
Not
that's why I
major.
always told people, look, it's not that onerous, we're not looking at wholesale changes. But anyway, so we sought.
But there's some gaps.
There are, and that's what we
And-
hope to maybe rectify, and you'll get a chance to look at. But I'm just giving you the history of where that came from. We just, rather than send it out to the people like these co-publishers who did this years ago, I think that's who we sent it to, Mr. Curtis, to talk more about it. But rather than do that, I thought we'd just do our little thing, so to speak, chapter 220, see what, because we've had comments, code enforcement officer and other members of the board said, hey, why is this way? Maybe we ought to add that, modify this. We don't really have this in there. It needs to be spelled out.
Is the fire piece in there, the fire zoning piece?
Not,
Or just that they should be considered or anything like that?
yeah, we need, want to reference that. I'm not sure I'm not sure that we referenced the fire code,
Yeah, it doesn't-
and we probably should.
Their presentation was
You just
interesting.
wanted to hitch your horse,
What's that, Chris?
where you hitch your horse, is that out there?
Those are good.
But anyway, so I just wanted you to know, and pretty soon, we're gonna get this out, because it's dragged on too many years. And I'm so serious, we're gonna get this. And other than that, the only other thing I had, we talked last meeting, we never got to have our Christmas get-together. So we thought we would still have a good little social gathering, I mean, it's good for the soul. Apart from business. And I want to wait until everybody's here, we can determine the date and the time.
Well, by the time we get around to doing it, it'll be
It'll be-
Christmas again.
Christmas.
Present for December.
I'm not being pessimistic. I just,
You just, so that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything?
I had nothing else.